Here we see the turn sequence reference. The game starts with a forward positioning phase, only occurs at the beginning of the game, and then after that each turn is composed of the following phases. First we check for any faults in the equipment in the fault check phase. Then we have the SLC phase where our SLCs conduct actions, and then we go through the harbor defense phase where we see how the harbor defenses react and conduct any attacks by the patrol boats and so forth. And finally we have at the end of the turn the cleanup phase, and then we start a new turn. And we start with the forward positioning phase that, as I stated before, only occurs at the beginning of the mission. And fatigue determines the starting number of surge tokens, and we perform fault checks for each of the SLCs. And in this mission, the submarine that is transporting the torpedoes begins at La Spezia, and this is the card that we used. And this is mission number 1, and we use this card that has the round number 1 on the top left corner. We consult the fatigue section, and each SLC begins with 1 surge token. That is the white round token that you see there occupying the breathing gear space. We have 1 per SLC. Now we perform 2 fault checks for each SLC before the mission begins. We have our faults deck, and for this particular mission there are 18 cards in the deck, so it has been shuffled. And now for SLC1 we draw 2 cards and apply the results. We draw the first card, breathing gear fault. Now we have to make a repair check with 1d6, and only on a 6 will the repair check succeed. And if it fails, we have to discard the surge token and this card from the game. And the roll is a 2. So the surge token on the breathing gear space is discarded. That means that the operators of SLC1 will have a -1 applied to any stamina checks. And in addition, we discard the drawn fault card. And that was the first card for SLC1. Now we draw a second card, SLC battery fault. And we also conduct a repair check, which will only be successful with a 6. And if it fails, we discard 1 of the battery tokens from the SLC. So we roll 1d6, and the roll is a 1. So we discard 1 of the 2 battery tokens from SLC1. And the battery still has 1 token left. Now we draw 2 fault cards for SLC2. First card is a wetsuit fault. And we conduct a repair check, and we need a 5 or more. However, SLC2 has a repair rating of 2, meaning that we roll 2 dice, and we add a +1 as indicated on the card for any such repair attempt to each of the dice, and we pick the die with the highest result. So we roll 2d6, and the roll is a 5 to a 6 modified to a 6 and a 7. So the wetsuit fault is repaired. Now we flip the second fault card for SLC2, and it's a breathing gear fault. And here the repair check is a 6 to succeed, but again we roll 2d6 and add 1. 5 and a 2, so we pick the 5, which is modified to a 6, and the repair is successful. So we discard that second fault card. So SLC2 is in top shape. None of its systems are damaged. Now we move on to SLC3, and their repair rating is 1. They have a 2 stamina rating, but now we flip the top fault card, and it's a ballast tank fault. We conduct a repair check, and we need a 6, so we roll 1d6, and the roll is a 2. So now we leave this card next to the SLC sheet, and we take the token on the ballast tank and leave it on the card. And for now, SLC3 can only be surfaced, it cannot submerge. Now we reveal the second fault card for SLC3. It's a battery fault, and we need a 6 in a repair check for this malfunction not to happen. Now we roll 1d6, and the roll is a 6. So we discard this card. That's the end of this forward positioning phase, where SLC1 lost its surge token at its breathing gear space. SLC2 did not suffer any fault, and SLC3 has its ballast tank right now malfunctioning, but may be repaired in a future action. Now we go on to the fault check phase, and we roll the SLC die, and that will determine which SLC we have to perform one fault check for. The SLC die is a 6-sided die that has the results 1, 2, and 3. Each such result appears twice, so each SLC has an equal chance of being selected, and we roll 1d6, and it is SLC number 2. So we make a fault check, and it's in a way good that it was SLC number 2, because these guys have high repair skills. So we flip one fault card, and it's a transmission fault. This is the kind of fault that can be repaired in case we fail the repair check dice roll. And these operators, Tesei and Pedretti, have a repair skill of 2. So we roll 2d6, and they also have a +1 die roll modifier. So we roll 2d6, and a 6 and a 1 was rolled. So a 6 is modified to a 7, and that is a successful repair. The fault card is discarded. Now we move on to the SLC phase, and each SLC in order uses either 1 or 2 action points. And in this case, all of our SLCs can use 2 because the operators are ready. We want to get those SLCs moving. They're currently surfaced. In that event, if they're successful in a skill roll, they would be able to move 3 hexes. The only SLC that cannot make a full move is SLC 3, which has a transmission fault that could be repaired. And we have to do these actions in SLC order. We start with SLC 1. We will attempt a full move. While surfaced, we will only spend 1 action point. That means we have to roll and make a pilot skill check. And on a 4 or more, it will be successful. And the 2 operators, Brindelli and Pacagnini, have a pilot skill of 1, so we only roll 1 die. So we roll 1d6, and the roll is a 2, so the full move attempt by SLC 1 fails. And that SLC still has 1 action left. We cannot attempt the same action twice, so the SLC will conduct a regular move action which consumes the remaining action point, and it is automatically successful. And SLC1 moves forward 1 hex and remains surfaced. Now it's SLC's 2 turn. They will attempt a full surface move. Need a 4 or more, and they roll 1d6. The roll is a 4, so they are successful, and the SLC advances towards the detached mole. It has 1 action point left, and now come the tough decisions. Does it submerge to make itself harder to detect, or does it go for an extra 1 hex move? Notice that eventually the SLC will have to make a turn if it wants to enter between the north and the detached mole. So there's interesting choices here. The SLC could attempt to dive, spending one action point and rolling a 4 or more with one die. While surfaced, it could change direction automatically just by spending an action point. Or it could move forward one hex automatically also. Thinking about submerging in the next turn, SLC2 will change direction, spending its action point. The action is automatic, and we rotate the front of SLC2 to point it towards the entrance between the north and the detached molds. We move on to SLC3, which has the transmission problem. It cannot make a full move while the transmission is damaged. These operators have a repair skill of 1, so they would only roll one die and they would need a 6. However, if they use both of their action points, the repair action will be automatically successful, and that's what they will do. So we return the disc to the SLC card and remove the fault card, and that's the end of the actions by all 3 SLCs. Now we move on to the harbor defense phase, and there's a series of steps which we take in order to determine if the SLCs are detected, and if detected, how the patrol craft respond, and that can entail even having the patrol craft attack the SLCs. And during the harbor defense phase, to determine the success or failure of each of these checks, we flip a card from the alert deck, and the cards there have numbers corresponding to the frequencies of a 2d6 roughly, and that means the results are from 2 to 12. So we start rolling for the searchlights, and we roll for each SLC that is undetected, in this case all 3 of them. They are all surfaced. We flip an alert card, and only on a 10 or more will they be detected and a patrol craft will respond. And we start with SLC 1. We flip an alert card and it's an 8. No effect. Now we check for SLC 2. Another 8. No effect. And now we check for the last SLC, number 3. And the alert card is an 11. SLC3 has been detected, and we place a detected token on the SLC and take the patrol craft with the lowest number, which is not in play, in that case Patrol Craft 1, and place it with its exhausted side face up. We just conducted the searchlight step. There is no underwater dive team, so we skip this step. And now we go to Patrolcraft Response, and all of our SLCs are surfaced. And now we have to flip an alert card for each. And for SLCs 1 and 2, which are just surfaced on a 9 or more, there will be a response by the patrol craft. And for SLC 3, which is surfaced and detected, there will be a response with a 7 or more. So we flip an alert card for SLC 1. That was a close call, an 8. No effect. Now we flip an alert card for SLC 2. A 5. No effect. Now we reveal an alert card for SLC 3 with a 7 or more. There will be a response. And luckily it's also a 5. That's a no effect. So we conducted Patrolcraft Response. Now we conduct Patrolcraft Movement. And during Patrolcraft Movement, we move each ready patrol craft. And in this particular case, the only patrol craft that is on the board is number 1, which is exhausted. So we skip this step also. Because there are no patrol craft in the same hex as any of our SLCs, there is no patrol craft attack. There is no shore base mortar that has been deployed, and there's no check on the anti-torpedo net to be made. That's the end of the harbor defense phase, and now we move on to the cleanup phase. And we remove any patrol craft that are 4 or more hexes from any SLC. That is not the case here, but we flip the exhausted patrol craft, like Patrolcraft number 1, to its ready side. And finally, we advance the time marker, and it is now 100 hours. And we just played one turn, and I played it slowly to give you an idea of the steps involved in the game. And now we will proceed to turn number 2. We proceed to the fault check phase. We roll the SLC die to see which of the SLCs has to make a fault check. And it is SLC number 3. And it's Durante la Penne and Bianchi. And we reveal a fault card, and it's ballast tank fault. And we start by making a repair check, and we need a 6. We roll 1d6, and fortunately for SLC3, a 6 is rolled. And the ballast tank remains operational. Now on to the SLC phase. Start with SLC number 1. As things are developing, SLC number 3 is going to be attracting a lot of attention, so it's better for SLC 1 to get the hell out of Dodge, and it will attempt a full move. But this time we will spend both action points to ensure a success of the full surfaced move. That means that SLC 1 moves forward 3 hexes. Now we move on to SLC number 2. SLC number 2 would like to submerge itself and then attempt a full move, which is 2 hexes, which would place him right with the net in front of him. It'll spend 1 action point to attempt a dive, and it needs a 4 or more. So we roll 1d6, but the roll is a 2, and that action fails. Now SLC number 2 will attempt a full surfaced move, and it also needs a 4 or more. So we roll 1d6, and this time it succeeds, so it could move up to 3 hexes forward. It will only move 2. So SLC 2 reaches the desired position, although in a surfaced state. Now Durante la Penne and Bianchi have to make a tough decision. If they decide to submerge and spend both their action points to ensure that result, they will be attacked by Patrolcraft number 1. However, that attack will only be successful on a 10 or more because the SLC would be submerged. And only when an SLC is submerged do they lose that detection token. So submerging is essential. The question is, will they attempt to submerge and move, or just submerge and take that one attack? And of course, these guys will take the bravest option, which is they will use just 1 action point to attempt to dive. It only succeeds on a roll of 4 or more with 1 die. So here we go. Oh boy, a 1. That failed. And having failed in its dive attempt, now they must get as far away from that patrol craft as they can. So they will attempt a full surface move, which of course, having just 1 action point is not automatic. They need a 4 or more with 1 die. So we roll 1d6. This time the roll is a 5. So now we move the SLC 3 spaces forward. And because it is moving on the surface and had a detection token on it, the detection token follows the SLC. On to the harbor defense phase, to the search lights step, and we flip an alert card for each of the non-detected SLCs, that's SLC 1 and 2, and because they're surfaced on a 10 or more, they will be detected. We begin with SLC number 1. Close call, a 9. That's a no effect. And now we reveal an alert card for SLC number 2. 8, also a no effect. Now to Patrolcraft Response, all SLCs being surfaced. SLCs 1 and 2 will receive a Patrolcraft Response on a 9 or more. SLC 3 being surfaced and detected on a 7 or more will suffer a Patrolcraft Response. So we flip an alert card for SLC 1. A 4, no effect. Now we reveal an alert card for SLC number 2. A 7, also no effect. Now we reveal an alert card for SLC 3 on a 7 or more. There will be a response. And it's a 7. Take the lowest number Patrolcraft, which is not on the board, the number 2, and place it in front of SLC, but the Patrolcraft is placed on its exhausted side. Having completed Patrolcraft Response, now we go on to Patrolcraft Movement. We move the non-exhausted Patrolcraft, and that is number 1. Because there is a detected token within 3 hexes of Patrolcraft number 1, we move it up to 2 hexes in the closest detected token's direction. And now the Patrolcraft has entered SLC 3's hex. Now we move on to Patrolcraft Attack because there's a Patrolcraft in the same hex as SLC 3, and because that SLC is surfaced, the Patrolcraft will succeed in the attack if the alert card is a 7 or higher. So we flip an alert card, and the card is a 10, and the Patrolcraft attack is successful. That causes our operator card in SL3 to be flipped to its stunned side. And while stunned, SL3 will only have 1 action in the upcoming turn. And if successfully attacked again by a Patrolcraft, both operators will be killed. That's the end of the Harbor Defense phase, and now to the Cleanup phase. And Patrolcraft number 2, which is exhausted, is now flipped to its ready side. That's the end of the 100-hour turn, and now we move on to 130 hours. On to the Fault Check phase. We roll the SLC die, and it's SLC number 1. It's Birindelli and Pacagnini, and we flip 1 fault card, and it's a ballast tank fault. And we check to see if it gets repaired. We roll 1d6, and we need a 6. But the roll is a 3. Ballast tank is damaged, and while damaged, SLC number 1 can only move on the surface. On to the SLC phase. We start with SLC 1, and having that ballast tank damage really puts them in a tough spot. And they have Patrolcraft nearby, but they have not been detected even though they are surfaced. So they will use both of their action points to repair the ballast tank. But SLC1 remains where it is. And now we go to SLC2, which is the closest SLC to one of the harbor nets. SLC2 with Tesei and Pedretti will spend their first action point by changing direction while surfaced. That is automatic. The next action point will be to attempt a dive, and they roll 1d6 and need 4 or more. And the roll is a 6, and they succeed in submerging their SLC. Now we move on to the hapless SLC-3. It's not a pleasant morning for Duran de la Pena and Bianchi. They are stunned and they only have one action point. And they are surfaced and they will attempt to submerge, to dive. And they need a 4 or more with 1d6. And the roll is a 4. So we flip SLC-3 to its submerged side. But because it has not moved outside the hex, it remains detected. On to the harbor defense phase. We go to the searchlight step and we check for SLCs 1 and 2. 1 is surfaced. On a 10 or more, there will be a detection token placed on it. But 2 is submerged. That will only happen on an 11 or more. So we check for SLC1. 6. No effect. Now we check for the submerged SLC2. And a 4, also no effect. There's no searchlight step for SLC3 because it already has a detected token on it. On to Patrolcraft Response, and SLC1 is surfaced. And there will be a successful response only on a 9 or more. And the alert card is a 7, no effect. Now we check for SLC2, which is submerged. On a 10 or more, the Patrolcraft will respond. And it's a 7, no effect. Now we check for SL3, which is submerged and detected. And on an 8 or more, there will be another response by the Patrolcraft. But the result is also a 7, no effect. On to Patrolcraft movement. There is a detected token within 3 hexes of ready Patrolcraft. So Patrolcraft number 2 moves into SL3's hex. And now there's 2 Patrolcrafts in the same hex. There's a maximum limit of 3 Patrolcraft that can be present in the same hex. Now to Patrolcraft attack. And because SLC3 is submerged, only on a 10 or more will the attack be successful. But there's going to be 2 attacks by Patrolcraft 1 and 2. We start with the attack by Patrolcraft 1. 9, close call, but no effect. Now to the attack by Patrolcraft number 2. And it's an 11. Another hit on SLC3. This second hit on the stunned operators of SLC3 kills them. And that's the end of SLC3. On to the cleanup phase. The Patrolcraft are not removed because they are not 4 or more hexes away from the nearest SLC, so they stay on the board. Now we move on to 200 hours. After 2 hours having elapsed in the mission, 1 of the SLCs and their crews have been lost. The 2 remaining torpedoes are on their way to the port of Gibraltar and approaching the North Mole and its anti-torpedo net. Both SLC-1 and 2 are fully operational with no malfunctioning systems for now. So far, SLC-1 and 2 have not been detected. Will they be able to penetrate the torpedo net and place their deadly warheads on the battleship's station in Gibraltar? Stay tuned for the next episode of By Stealth and Sea. This is Stuka Joe, signing off for now. Thanks for watching.